Come here. Shut your stupid ass up. Say that, folks. What did your dumb ass say it?
Howdy, Space Rangers, Captain Phoenix here. Once again, I am 3 weeks late to review, but you know what? We're not gonna worry about it. Let's just get into it, and get into it we shall. Now, months ago, after Black Panther released, I made a community post about how Marvel and superhero films in general should be made going forward. It's quite a bit of text, so I'll let you pause to read if you want to. Pause at any time, right now, even during this quiet second. But basically, in that post, I said that Black Panther Wakanda Forever was as good as it was because it felt personal, and that Marvel shouldn't wait until someone dies in order to add their own personal spin to a movie. People feel that superhero movies these days are fake or written by AI, and I felt that adding a human element to them would work. 2023 started out as not being on my side, as both Ant-Man and Shazam were perfect examples of the superhero movies people hate and feel that should die out. However, Guardians 3 came in and not only changed the masses' minds completely, but finally made everyone excited for the future of superheroes, both DC and Marvel. And that's all thanks to James Gunn. But not me personally, I've always loved superheroes and forever will. So, not only is this gonna be a Guardians 3 review, but I'm actually gonna sit down and talk to you guys about how Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 has set the standard for what superhero movies should strive to be and exceed. But before all that, let's talk about the movie itself. So, one of the strongest things I really love from this movie is the camaraderie of the Guardians themselves, and how it's especially strong in this movie compared to the other two. I do feel like this is the strongest team dynamic we've got with the Guardians in the entire trilogy. In the first two, they would mostly argue with each other and bicker a lot, whereas here, they feel more united and, again, had better chemistry with each other. And I do think that the plot kind of has an influence on this, as because one of their teammates, someone they see as family, is injured, the tone does feel like it needs to be a bit more serious and heavy, and thus the Guardians kind of have to resort to actually caring about each other and talking to each other on a more grounded personal level, as, again, the stakes, while not universe-wide this time, are, personal-wise, very huge. And yeah, I just really love solid chemistry between characters, especially in team movies or events. And it's weird how in the entirety of the MCU, there are only two teams. The teams I feel act like an actual family. Those being the Avengers and the Guardians. And I know those like the main teams in the MCU, excluding big ones like other ones like the Eternals. But like from their movies, I only feel like the only times I felt like where they actually acted like genuine family to each other were in Age of Ultron and in Guardians 3 for each respective team. So it's kind of weird how like those are the only times where I felt like these characters were connected, but that's just me. So, however, as mentioned, I love the dynamics in this movie, and there's so many character moments I loved. I loved Quill and Groot on the high evolutionary ship, where they're just kind of having a tag team blasting each other, and Groot just being Pete's, like backup guy. He's like his muscle, he's his boy. Nebula and Rocket having a deep bond with each other. I like the little details of how Rocket fixed up Nebula, like removing her cybernetic eye, giving her a more, I guess, synthetic one that worked. And I love how Gamora kind of teared up when she heard Rocket was alive and well. It was some very genuine, very heartwarming stuff. And of course, there's this scene at the end in the climax where Rocket is like, I'm done running. And the team all decide to go help him fight off the high evolutionary. It was a really cool moment. The team dynamics in this movie and the chemistry with the characters is just off the charts. I could go on and on and on. Of course, even with the other smaller characters who weren't introduced in the first couple movies, like Mantis. Mantis is easily my favorite character from the Guardians team, period. Like, protect that lady at all costs. And her dynamic with Drax is just funny. It's pure gold. It was great in the holiday special, and I love how they carried that energy over here as well. But of course, as much as I mentioned that Mantis is my favorite character for the Guardians in general, in this movie specifically, Rocket is the person who stole my heart. They really went all out with him. His backstory is just so sad and heartbreaking, and like, goddamn, has there never been an easier way to make me hate a villain? His friends were all really sweet. I like how his friends were all clearly disturbed, like they're supposed to be like abominable creatures. There's a walrus with wheels and a rabbit that's had all her legs taken off and like replaced with robotic spider legs and whatnot. Like they're all supposed to be like these kind of abomination creatures, but you can just feel for them. You just feel for them. You just sympathize with them, you empathize with them, you genuinely have a connection with these creatures. Like, I never thought the day would come when I would feel bad and tear up over CG animals and the way they die in the end. Like Flores got done dirty. Like, the High Evolutionary deserves 10 death rows for what he did to Flores. Sorry, Floor, not Flaws. Sorry, messed it up. But yeah, the amount of depth they gave Rocket in this movie is just astounding. And it's kind of crazy, like how this can be traced all the way back to Guardians 1. For those who don't remember, like there was this scene in Guardians 1 in the prison where Rocket and Peter were changing into their prison clothes, and we get to like see Rocket's back is full of like these cybernetics and whatnot. But they never get but we don't really get an explanation as to why they're there. And in this movie, we do find out, we do understand how he came to be and what a horrible upbringing he had because of the man who created him. It's just sad and traumatic and all that stuff. It's beautiful stuff. Beautiful setup, beautiful writing, beautiful development. Like, no wonder he's the main character. Most of Rocket's moments in this movie, of course, especially the ones tying back to his backstory when we have a flashback sequence, most of them, of course, made me tear up. And when he finally said his comic book name at the end of the movie, it just felt so earned. Like, I straight up cheered. That is how you know the people behind this movie have such a love for comics, or at the very least the source material these characters come from. Like the scene where he finally said his comic book name, that scene hit hard. Everything with Rocket in this movie just touched me on an emotional level.
We'll all fly away together. One last time. Into the forever and beautiful sky.
The CGI in this movie has been some of Marvel's best in a while. And I really love this one scene in the climax, which I'm pretty sure is mostly fully CG, where the Guardians are heading to the High Evolutionary's like headquarters, and they like have to fight all of his minions and whatnot. It's just one long shot. The minute they enter the hallway, up until the other end of the hallway, it's just action scene after action scene where we see the Guardians having combos or moves that they use on the minions, where they finally get to the end of the room. It's a beautiful cinematic scene. Like, the cinematography there is just off the walls. And again, I'm pretty sure it's mostly CG, so like the fact that they were able to pull that off is just mwah, chef's kiss, beautiful. However, I would be remiss if I didn't mention some of the flaws of this movie. And as amazing as I think this movie is, it does have some flaws. One being Adam Warlock. It's no secret that Adam Warlock was heavily underused in this movie, especially after having been built up since Guardians 2. He had some funny moments, sure, but outside of that, he didn't really have much to do with the plot outside of the beginning and the ending. Apparently, he was also mega nerfed from his comic counterpart, which isn't great, but at the very least, they didn't kill him off. So now they actually have a chance to power him up as the movies go by. Now that we know he is a Guardian, I would like to see him slowly develop and strengthen his powers as the movies go on. Maybe, they'll have a chance to kind of redeem themselves. And hey, now this would give them a chance to actually give the Guardians larger threats to go up against with a powerhouse like Adam Warlock. Maybe if Thor was still a part of the team, we could have had a sick fight between him and Adam, but James Gunn has made it very clear that he didn't want to write Thor, so I guess it wasn't meant to be. His actor is great though, and his interactions with his mom and the alien dog are funny. I'd definitely like to see him in more movies. Also, another big flaw I'd have to point out for this movie is the living lab station. As fun as it was, and as cool and creative of a concept it is, I just don't feel like it contributed that much to the movie. Like, I mean, they go there and then they find out the information they need is in the head of some other guy, and then they have to go to another planet to find that guy. It's a mess, and it kind of makes that part of the movie feel a bit too fillery, if you ask me. Maybe if one of two things of consequence happened there, I wouldn't be as mad, but the fact that we just kind of went there, did a couple shenanigans, saw the place, and then left without really having much of anything done, yeah, it does kind of leave a bit wanting. I will say though that I am glad the movie did wrap up the Gamora and Peter love storyline. It did kind of start a bit at the living station, so I do credit where credit's due. And they do wrap it up really well. I like how Gamora finds her home, her family with the Ravagers at the end of the movie, showing that no matter what universe she's in, she just really needs a crew, and that she doesn't always depend on Peter and the rest of the Guardians to actually find a family. It was some good character development for both of them, and I'm glad they didn't force an unnecessary romance between the two of them. James Gunn really worked with the best he had, as what happened to Gamora wasn't his original vision, but it does feel very organic with the rest of the MCU. So again, credit where credit's due. Also, I'm kind of surprised I didn't mention this before, but in terms of character dynamics, I also really loved Kraglin and Cosmo. They were just genuinely funny. They were constantly funny throughout the entire movie. I need Cosmo as a pet so badly. Please, get me a telekinesis dog. I'm the happiest guy in the world. Of course, you can't talk about a superhero movie without talking about its villain. And the High Evolutionary is an amazing villain. He's the kind of guy King was supposed to be. He may not be as charismatic, but he is just as dangerous. He shows off his power on numerous occasions, instantly bodying characters like Adam Warlock, who again are supposed to be powerful hard hitters. And he's also just irredeemably, deliciously evil. Like the man's tortures animals. If you want any way to get your audience to immediately hate something, torture an animal. For some reason, us humans value animals over other humans, and the High Evolutionary shows that to a T. Throughout the entire movie, I just wanted nothing but for this guy to die. And honestly, with him and Jack Horner from Puss in Boots' Last Wish in December, it feels so good to get this kind of villain back again. Just the irredeemable pieces of crap who don't deserve a second chance. All they deserve is just dead, 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 dead.
Is gonna be dead. D-E-D.
I even love Rocket's overwhelming fear to him towards the end, when it was a choice between, save the other Guardians in a dumb plan or trade him off to the High Evolutionary. Rocket's fear in that moment really sold how much of a threat the High Evolutionary is. Like, this man's is a menace. Put him down.
My sacred mission is to create the perfect society. He didn't want to make things perfect. He just hated things the way they are.
I also really love his "there is no God, that's why I had to step in" line. I mean, that's gonna become a meme, a couple months from now when the movie's out. And best part, he is given a satisfying defeat. I mean, there was no lame stuff with ants and whatever the frick that face with MODOK is. I mean, it actually took the entire Guardians team to beat him. And let me just say, that is one of the most satisfying villain beatdowns I have ever seen. My god, was that scene amazing. Now, I kind of touched on the comedy of this movie a bit earlier. And yes, this movie is very funny. This is James Gunn, of course, so he's good at writing action comedies like this. So this is a very funny movie. And while most of the jokes land, some of them do not. Like, there's a moment where the High Evolutionary is giving his big monologue for, like, his universe domination plans or whatever, and Star-Lord interrupts him, being like, oh, blah, 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 or whatever. And I just thought to myself in that moment, really, Marvel? After 15 years of adapting comics, we're still doing this? Stop making fun of your source material. This joke is so old. Kung Fu Panda 3 did this joke better and more creative 7 years ago.
I'm going to take your chi and the chi of every panda in chit chat. In this chitty chitty chat 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 chat. In this chit chat. You punch. Who wastes chi? I will have yours if it takes me 500 more. Chitty chitty chat chat. Chit chat.
There was also a scene where, like, Adam Warlock and his mom were, like, interrogating a Ravager, and Adam incinerated the Ravager, and that whole scene just went on for way too long, and it was, like, bordering on just too much self-aware. Like, I feel like they were just straight up about to turn to the camera and be like, hey, audience, we're making a joke. It was a bit much. And yeah, there was a weird scene with the Guardians on the Flesh planet. I'll show you the clip, and you'll see why it's not as funny as you think it is.
Open line for everyone.
Orange is for blue.
What?
Black is for orange. Yellow is for green. Green is for red. And red is for yellow.
No, yellow is for yellow. Green is for red, red is for green.
I don't think so.
Try it then.
Hello! You're right.
But as said, most of them do land. And I kind of am happy that the good jokes didn't really make it in the trailer because again, a lot of the good jokes are just in the movie itself, and you don't really get to see them until you watch the movie. So I'm glad they weren't in the trailer. But just some of the jokes I can remember off the top of my head was, of course, open the freaking door. This was the MCU's first swear word, and it was just so funny that it came out of nowhere. I also love that scene where Rocket is saying a dumb plan is good after all. You know, a dumb plan is better than no plan. When Gamora suggested that they just hand Rocket over to the High Evolutionary, that was funny as well. Again, selling how much of a threat the High Evolutionary is. There was this scene where Adam was like trying to kill Gamora, and Gamora was like holding a knife to the space dog, and she's like, one more step and I kill him, and he's like, don't be rash. That was just funny. And at the end of the movie, when the Guardians are splitting up, Drax and Mantis are saying goodbye to each other, and Mantis is like, I'm gonna go out on my own, and don't come with me, Drax, I don't want you to join me. And Drax is like, I don't want to join you, it's just you need someone to protect you. Who's gonna protect this small scrawny body of yours? You're not gonna survive. It was funny. And of course, who could forget this gem of a gag?
And we'll kill anyone who gets in our way.
No, not kill anyone.
Kill a few people.
Kill no people.
Kill one guy, one stupid guy who no one loves.
Now you're just making it sad.
Again, a lot of the good jokes weren't shown in the trailer, and I'm glad the marketing team did leave them as a surprise for you to get, for you to enjoy them more later on. Now, of course, this movie did make me tear up. I did not expect to get hella emotional in a Guardians of the Galaxy movie. Though to be fair, after two of these, you'd have thought I would learn my lesson on the third one. But no, it's true. I did tear up a lot in this one. For one, we have Rocket's line, which just breaks me to my very core.
We'll all fly away together. Into the forever and beautiful sky.
The Guardians teaming up with Rocket to take on the High Evolutionary was just everything to me. It really solidified how these guys really operated as a family.
I'm done running.
The new Guardians team at the end is also shaping up to be really promising, what with King Groot and Adam Warlock as the muscle and Rocket officially as the new leader of the team. Plus, Star-Lord is confirmed to be coming back at some point, so I guess that'll be interesting. Overall, this is the best Guardians of the Galaxy movie. And no, this isn't the recency bias talking. The movie's been out for 3 weeks, and in that time, I actually watched the first 2 Guardian movies for the first time. Yeah, I know I watched 1 and 2 after 3. We don't need to talk about it. But if you want to know my quick ranking of the movies, it's Guardians 2 in 3rd place, Guardians 1 in the middle, which, by the way, I just want to say this after watching Guardians 1, it is the best non-Star Wars movie Disney has made, which makes me so mad because they can clearly make one and they just refuse to. And of course, at the top is Guardians 3, which is such a beautiful, deeply passionate, personal, and heart-wrenching film that perfectly closes out the trilogy and James Gunn's time at Marvel. This movie, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, gets a 9 out of 10. What a masterpiece. Now, before you leave, I want to properly elaborate on something. If you remember at the start of this review, I said that Guardians 3 succeeded because it was made with a personal edge. Watching this movie, you can tell that James Gunn loves these characters, especially Rocket, who was the focus this time, and who Gunn admitted was his favorite. I'm actually glad no one died in this movie, despite constant online theories. James didn't kill these characters for the sake of shock value or because it's his last movie. He gave them proper arcs to end off of and continue with, and that adds to this movie's value. And now that this movie exists, I wholeheartedly believe that going forward, more superhero movies will look at the reception this one got and work to match the quality of the once obscure comic book characters who've now become beloved icons. And my point has been proven right, and will continue to be proven right if the people making these movies add the reason why they love making them. And this is why I am so excited for James Gunn's future in the superhero industry. He's already said countless times that he grew up reading comics and he has a connection with the characters he writes. This is why I think that Superman Legacy might be one of the best comic book movies ever made if done right. James has revealed that not only did he grow up with the comics, but they were also something that he and his dad bonded over. And now that Superman's 85th anniversary has passed, I take it that he wants to do something special dedicated to both the character and to his dad. And by the way, just for the record, I do not think that this movie is a fluke. It's not a lucky win that Marvel stumbled into, nor did James do Marvel a solid before going to work for their biggest rival. I genuinely think Marvel has figured it out and can improve their movies. Same with DC, but since James is running DC, I don't need to talk about that. But bottom line is, I genuinely think Guardians 3 is a game changer in the superhero industry. I mean, why do you think Shazam 2 was so underwhelming? Because it was made by a guy who didn't even want to make the movie in the first place. Or why do you think Ant-Man 3 was so lifeless and bad? Because the entire thing was so focused on setting up other projects that it forgot to be a movie first. Guardians focused itself on being a movie first, MCU project second. Guardians of the Galaxy 3 worked because it came from a place of passion and love for the characters and their stories. And that is why Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 is more important than you realize. Anyway, guys, that's gonna do it for today. Now, let me ask you a question. What did you think of Guardians 3? Do you think it was a good movie, a great send off for these characters? Or do you think that they should still have a couple more hurrahs in them? And of course, I'd like to know, what is your favorite Guardians film of the three? I definitely still think it's this one, even after watching the other two after this one. And on top of that, do you really think superheroes are dead, or that superhero fatigue is going to get us all at some point? I genuinely don't think so. I really do feel lucky to be living in a time of nerds, when nerds are like taking over Hollywood and actually making the weird, wacky stories we wanted to make since we were kids. So it really would be hard for me to say goodbye to this era. And so that's why I kind of do want to see it last for as long as possible. What do you guys think? Do you think we're becoming more selective with the superhero movies we're watching? Or do you think it's time that superhero movies learn to actually evolve instead of trying to build up a universe or fill someone's paycheck? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Again, thank you so very much for watching, guys. I've been Captain Phoenix, and with that, I will see you in another universe. Goodbye, my Rangers.